Some video games don't make it to store shelves.
A video game based on the comic Gotham by Gaslight. Project Hagar was set to be Microsoft's effort to bring Halo to the youth.
One show aims to find out why that is. Don't miss new episodes of Game Graveyard, right here on RatedEm.
Nintendo Power was a memorable part of my childhood. I think that if I didn't read Nintendo Power as a kid, I would not be here making videos like this. I was originally going to do a video just on Nintendo Power, and I think it'll still be the main focus of this episode, but I do want to take a look at a few other magazines that existed around this time. We'll also look at a few ways video games advertise themselves within these magazines through some pretty outrageous and edgy ads. So in today's episode, we're looking at gaming magazines. First off, I just want to discuss the impact that gaming magazines had on me. Again, I pretty much only read Nintendo Power. I think it was just because Nintendo was sort of a kid-friendly company, so my mom must have thought that the magazine would also be kid-friendly, which from my memory was true for the most part. Sure, they covered some mature games, but it was relatively respectful, I guess. I vividly remember owning the 2012 January issue, as well as the holiday 2011 issue. There's also a few that I can't tell if I owned them or if I just saw them on store shelves and remember the covers. But having a designated magazine for video games really sort of made me feel more confident in the hobby. I like drawing and writing and building with Lego, and I liked playing at the park, but I didn't really have traditional boy hobbies like sports or martial arts or playing music. I really gravitated towards video games, and I think that having a public magazine about video games made me think, oh wow, there are people out there who love video games just as much as I do. It made the hobby feel a lot less like something to be looked down upon because I sort of felt less alone. Sure, I had friends that played video games, but most of the time it wasn't the games that I played. Nintendo Power focused on a lot of games I played on my Wii and my DSi, and then eventually my 3DS. The various reviews and showcases in these magazines would also introduce me to new games. I learned what Ace Attorney was because of one issue that had a whole segment talking about the main character. Not that I'm some crazy Ace Attorney fan, but I'm just saying, I learned about the larger video game sphere than what I was just exposed to locally because of Nintendo Power. I remember their review for Crush 3D, which is like a random little obscure 3DS game, but I remember seeing their review and being like, oh wow, I wish I could play that. Or their review for Rhythm Thief for the 3DS. It led me to go and download the demo on my 3DS. And on a similar note, I think that learning about these games through Nintendo Power sort of sculpted my deep love for all kinds of video games. I don't just want to appreciate AAA titles, I really like learning about the obscure under-the-rug games, and I feel like Nintendo Power highlighting AA games such as Crush 3D or Rhythm Thief built that pathway in my brain. RatedEm, as a web series, was sort of built upon the love for lesser recognized games, and it's probably because of the offshoot games I read about when I was younger.
Need a new form of entertainment in your life? Join the thousands of others who have considered subscribing. Side effects may include joy, laughter, and newfound knowledge about video games. Talk to your doctor about if subscribing is right for you.
Don't miss new episodes of So What Happened To, Saturday mornings on RatedEm.
For the second half of the episode, I want to talk about what was going to be the original topic of this video, which is the advertisements seen in these books. I'll start off with the ones I saw in Nintendo Power, and then I'll show off some that I just find really interesting from other magazines. The first one I'm going to talk about is this Songbird Ocarinas advertisement. Songbird Ocarinas is a company that is seemingly still up and running today. They operate in Los Angeles and make all their products by hand. But they had this advertisement that was in multiple issues of Nintendo Power of this person in like a fantasy costume holding a blue ocarina, and then on the side was like the whole list of available ocarinas that you could buy from them. It was very obviously meant to appeal to Zelda fans, and I remember I wanted one as a kid, but like I never liked Zelda. It's not like I was some massive Ocarina of Time fan. I just think that it would be cool to have a real-life version of an iconic video game item. In the same way that I always wanted one of the Hidden Blade replicas that they would put out for the Assassin's Creed games. But I finally own one now, I own the Shadows one. Another one I would see frequently in Nintendo Power are these ESRB advertisements where it would feature, I guess, an archetype of someone who plays video games, and then it describes how the ESRB ratings help them find what games best suit them. These were kind of cute, and they were done by the artists of Penny Arcade, and I hate to sound like a new gen, but I only vaguely knew what it was before doing this video. I knew it was a webcomic series, but I didn't know exactly what it was, but looking at some of these strips, they're honestly kind of funny. I mean, I can understand why the ESRB chose Penny Arcade to make these ads. Penny Arcade is a comic about video games and nerd culture, but a couple of the comic strips are a little inappropriate. At the same time, it's not like they're advertising, hey look, it's Penny Arcade. It's more of like, if you know, you know. If you recognize the art style, good on you. If not, no big deal. Those are the only two advertisements that are engraved into my head from these magazines. The rest I'll mention are just ones that I've seen online that I really like. The first one is this infamous ad for Daikatana, which is a game created by one of the big names who worked on the original Doom, John Romero. The advertisement simply says, John Romero is about to make you his bitch, which is getting at the idea that Daikatana is gonna have you obsessed like no game has ever done before. The irony here is that Daikatana ended up flopping, like really hard. It was not a crazy impactful game by any means, and the funnier thing is that John Romero later said that he really regrets this ad and feels really bad for how mean it was. One that I find really cool and is, in my opinion, a staple of 2000s gaming advertisements is this one for Resident Evil on the GameCube. It's a grown man being comforted by his much younger son with the text, "Adults get scared too," which I find is really clever. It's the sillier ads like this that really cement the aesthetic of 2000s gaming advertisements, for me at least. I feel like the ones of years prior were obsessed with how awesome and mind-blowing a game can be, and then the ones around like 2004 to maybe 2008 were just a bit more fun, which I much prefer. Consider this one an honorable mention just to prove my point. This Walmart Game Boy Advance ad from 2004 is just kind of funny. I like ads like this much more than something like the Daikatana advertisement. Here's one that I think is silly just because of how stupid it is. It's promoting the tribal Game Boy Advance variants, but it shows off this render of Mario with a tribal tattoo and has text that says, if it's cool enough for Mario. The thing is, I don't think anyone thinks that Mario is cool. Sure, he's memorable and iconic and lovable, but I don't think any kid was looking at Mario Party gameplay and thinking, oh my god, he is so fucking badass. This one really isn't an advertisement, but it's the holiday 2009 cover for the PlayStation magazine, and it goes unbelievably hard. You know what game this is. There's no text, but you know. I think the last one I'll mention is this one for Rayman 3, which has Rayman using a urinal with all the people surrounding him looking at his wiener. And then there's just text that says, no arms, no legs, huge features. Sure, alright, whatever, that'll get my pre-order, I guess. So there you have it, a look back at gaming magazines. Here's where I'd usually say, oh, these were so important, let's bring them back. But like, I just don't think they would work in today's society. Gaming has changed, and it's less of a niche hobby now. Like, I've got coworkers in their mid to late 30s playing Avowed and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I think that people just see games now in the same way that they see movies or music. When the Grim Reaper of the Ring, Randy Orton, is opening up about how much he loves Elden Ring, it's safe to say that gaming is pretty mainstream now. I think it is just, unfortunately, an era that is over, and there's nothing we can really do about it. Although it does suck that gaming journalism now is just only important news stories. Obviously reviews are still around, but the much more just for fun aspects of gaming magazines are pretty much gone. Like the aforementioned sections of Nintendo Power where they would showcase a history of a character and have all these facts about them, like you would never see that as a Digzerto article. I think this is, again, just how the gaming sphere has changed. This is a much larger discussion, but the nonchalant Valorant, Warzone, Overwatch, live streamer archetype of gamer, like ruined any charm that gaming culture had. Gaming is no longer a hobby with a culture to invest yourself into, but more of just a time spending activity. It's really ironic that when single player games were the majority, the community was a lot more tight knit, but then when multiplayer games became the majority, the community got a lot more, for lack of better terms, selfish. Even though there are still single player games, and some that have released in recent years have been absolutely massive successes, The impact that the multiplayer rise has created affects the single-player community too. If you don't like Red Dead 2, there are people that will crucify you for it. And I know that people like this existed back then too. I'm not sitting here saying that gaming was just oh so perfect back then. But like, you would also see webcomics like Penny Arcade or comics from Dorkly that would be like, video game logic, am I right? And they would be about AAA games of the time. And in my memory, this aspect of the gaming community was much louder than the keyboard warriors who fought defending their goats. We all recognized that games were just stupid and funny, and that was sort of the foundational layer of the gaming community. All charm like that has been sapped from the gaming community, and maybe because of that, we don't deserve these fun gaming magazines anymore. But I don't know, maybe I'm just off my rocker.